Hey, I just did a piece to camera that was way too full on, so I'm not going to publish that. Probably ever. So, anyway, I've deconstructed a few fairy tales instead because that's nice and safe. In particular, some characters from fairy tales who are my favourites, being the villains. The villains in fairy tales and why we need them. For example, Maleficent. Did you know that she had her wings chopped off while she fell asleep? And she fell asleep because some guy spiked her drink. So she turned up uninvited to Aurora's christening and she cast a curse on Aurora. But everything turned out okay in the end. We all know that that's how fairy tales work. When I was a kid, I used to have nightmares about the green face of the Wicked Witch of the West. Appearances aside, how would you feel if a house fell on your sister, killing her, the ruby slippers were stolen, and sweet Dorothy's standing there with the pigtails, and Dorothy was therefore a murderer, a thief, and she fell asleep in a field of poppies, which makes her in dire need of rehab? It's funny. Rapunzel's father, I don't know his name, he was a baker, and he wasn't content with his own croissants, so he ate his way through all of the fresh green crops in the witch's garden and then stole her magic beans. And then he cried foul because the witch kidnapped his daughter, Rapunzel. But dude, you traded your kid for a garden salad, so what did you expect? And speaking of magic beans, how would you feel if you were a sleeping giant and then suddenly this brat called Jack just broke into your house? And speaking of houses, Hansel and Gretel were vandals because they're standing there munching away, gnawing through a stranger's dream home. And can you imagine how long it took that witch to construct, assemble, decorate and ice that gingerbread house? We all know how hard gingerbread houses are to build. Why are so many women in these stories branded as witches anyway? Maybe they're just, angry. Lady Tremaine, she was the original dance mum. She was an overworked widow trying to secure financial stability for her daughters, and she actually taught them how to sing at night, lying in bed. And yes, Cinderella cleaned and dusted and mopped. I reckon it helped build her character, and she had magic mice to help her anyway. But anyway, in the end, she got the dress, the prince, and the glass slippers. But what can you do in glass slippers? You can't run, you can't do cartwheels, you can't go to the gym, and you can't walk up the street in glass slippers. And they don't match jeans. So I wouldn't want glass slippers. So villains. They're hurt, they're excluded, they're misunderstood, but they're also fascinating and multifaceted and deeply flawed and most of all, completely necessary and vital to balance out the story so the goodies can feel all good about themselves in their shining light. Because there ain't no yin without yang. So we all know these are just fairy tales and olden day stories with magical plot lines and supernatural themes, and so are young children, but happily ever after doesn't exist, and that's not scary. That's just life. So the moral of these villains is that they are the most human of us all, allegedly, probably. They're pretty cool. Villains are cool. Bus soldiers.